One of my favorite tools to use off-grid here on the mountain property is the cordless electric string trimmer. This particular one is a Kobalt. And yes, I've done a Kobalt video before about an electric chainsaw I had that happened to take the same battery, and I got some interesting comments about it, we'll put it that way. But I really like this Kobalt string trimmer. It might not be the greatest string trimmer in the world. It works great for me and has for quite a few years. So, yeah. The nice thing about a cordless electric string trimmer is that you don't have a lot of gas fumes and super loud noises. It has a little bit of volume to the string trimmer action, but it's not as loud as a gas string trimmer blowing exhaust at you. And I can charge it with my off-grid power setup here, especially in the summertime when the days are pretty long here in the mountains. String trimmer is pretty easy to use. It has that throttle lever there, a 1-2 setting for low or high on the rotations on the trimmer head. The battery goes into this top of the case here. This is a 40 volt 5 amp hour battery. I can string trim for about 45 minutes or an hour on one charge with the 5 amp hour battery. It takes a couple hours to charge here off grid. Now if I had multiple acres, this string trimmer might bog down a little bit after time unless you got multiple batteries, which I do. You can see a bit of the Cherokee Purple Tomatoes here in the container garden. Nice thing about a container garden is you can take it anywhere. Throw it in the back of your truck with these pots, with your kale and your tomatoes. You can go anywhere. I mean, the fact is that I started these seedlings at a lower elevation in a completely different place, and now they're here growing in these containers. Cherokee Purples in biochar. The biochar, I've noticed, I've done a comparison between plants grown in biochar and without so much biochar, and the biochar plants just seem to be a little more resilient in terms of pest pressure and just have a better color to them, especially with that extra carbon and in the soil. The plants just seem to be a little healthier, vibrant, and resilient in terms of the amount of pests that seem to kind of want to go and attack them. But yeah, the Cherokee Purple, there's some other broccoli there. The gold nugget tomatoes are really starting to flower out nicely and get some small fruits on them. Really impressed with those. They're probably going to need some caging and some support once they get heavier fruit. Same with the Cherokee Purples. I've grown the Cherokee Purples before. It's an old heirloom variety. The fruit gets heavy, but yeah, the kale and there's some bamboo in a pot there mixed in the garden. Everything's doing great. Really impressed how many flowers the gold nugget tomato is getting. Here, yet another year of standing out as one of the tallest, most prolific plants on the property is the Japanese Burdock. This one is going to seed now. It has these amazing spiked flowers that are so vibrant in color. As you can see, I'm going to save the seed from these again. These I didn't even plant. They just keep coming back in this spot here. And they get to about 9-10 feet tall. And then they get heavy with seeds and fall down a little bit. Just a tough plant, super medicinal. Really long taproot from my understanding. It'll just go down and cut right through glacial rock, which they do here. I never water them. Never do anything to even care for this old medicinal plant. but it just keeps growing. Really impressed with how these hazelnut trees have fared over the years. I've had a lot of issues with different scabbing on the apple trees, but these hazelnuts, I haven't given them really any irrigation at all this summer, and yet they just look great. And then we've got the black cap raspberries, a native here to the Cascade Mountains. These raspberries, they aren't really big in size, but they are full of flavor. They get these really long canes on them that have really sharp spikes on them. The fruit is really, really good. I got a few plugs of these from Burnt Ridge Nursery in Washington and planted the plugs on the plot here, and they just took off. I have to hack them back to keep them out of different places. Here we've got the apple tree. This one is a king apple. This is one of the apples that has fared the best in terms of disease and just overall health and vigor. It is just one of my top producers this year. It's got lots of fruit on it all over the place. At this point, I really need to take some time and thin some of these apples. Thinning is important for many reasons. The first one here is as you notice, these branches are getting really heavy on this king apple. So by thinning the clusters of fruit, if there's more than, say, 2 fruits on a cluster, it's good to take a little load off of those branches so they don't strain so much and potentially break. The fruit on the king apples gets heavy. Therefore, it is important to thin these apples out. Thinning also enables the apples to grow larger, more productive fruit. Some of the reasons for this is because once you thin the fruit out a little bit and take some of those smaller fruits out, more light can get in to the tree, more air can circulate, and you just get a better uniform crop. Now that the off-grid solar electrical system has charged the 40-volt battery, I can resume clearing the side of the property here. Vegetation on the edges of the property. Here is on the far side of the woodpile here, along a row of apple trees. When I got the string trimmer initially, I was wondering if it could handle some of the heavier vegetation on the property. Some of the comfrey and blackberries and whatnot can get pretty thick in diameter and stem-wise, and I didn't know if the electrical power could handle it. I'm used to running a gas still string trimmer. For years now I've used those, and they can run solid for hours and hours. But the noise and the fumes are completely unnecessary, especially when I've got a property that's about 1/4 of an acre and I just don't need tanks and tanks of fuel to get through the job. One charge on that 5 amp hour battery can do most of the property, even when it's fairly overgrown like it is here. I do have some garlic planted on the side there that I'll probably want to harvest here soon. And yet, like the Japanese burdock, the parsnips survived the frigid winter, came back and grew these tall stalks full of seeds. This tough parsnip variety survived single-digit temperatures over the winter and grew back to produce a nice quantity of seed. Let me know in the comments what you think of the parsnip seed. Thank you for watching In the Mountains. Please hit that like button if you like what you see, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.